Okay, right, 8 o'clock. Good evening, everybody. It's Aaron here in my home office down here in Surrey, and welcome. Tonight, I will be talking about cash flow and some of the tough decisions you're going to have to make over the coming weeks and months ahead. And I have got Nigel somewhere, hopefully, on the call as well. Let me just check if I can get hold of him. Okay. I can find him. Hi, Nigel, are you there? Hello?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Hi, Nigel, you all right?
Yep, very well.
Brilliant, brilliant. Nice to hear you. So, right, we've got Nigel here and myself. So let me start sharing my screen. That's the first thing I'm going to do.
Yeah, don't share mine.
I won't share yours. If I can find the right thing to share. Okay, can you see that, Nigel? I know you can tell me. So,
Yep.
Brilliant. So, okay, so tonight, yes, my name's Arun Mehra, and tonight we're talking about tough decisions, cash flow actions to keep your dental practice going. I'm based down here in Surrey. Nigel, where are you this evening?
I'm in Wiltshire near Bath.
Okay, nice part of the world. Lots of countryside in both places.
Very
so, let me just crack on with this slide. Hope this is going to work. Right, who am I? If you haven't heard any of our webinars before, my name's Aaron, and I'm the owner and CEO of Samara Business Advisors. I also own a private dental group with my wife Smita called the Neem Tree. We've been working with dentists for almost over 17 years. I'm a trained chartered accountant, an ex-vice president of Bank of America, blah, 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 blah. Nigel, I haven't got a slide for you, but do you want to introduce yourself and who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I'm Nigel Crossman. I'm the head of commercial finance at Samara Finance. Previously, I was head of healthcare at RBS. Obviously, spent 40 years at RBS doing various jobs, but finished my career in the last 10 years doing healthcare and what was called special relationships. So looking after people who are having a few difficulties. So this is probably quite apt tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got what Nigel's kind of experience and wisdom to share. So I've got the slides here, but I'm sure he'll interject. He's never one not to voice his opinion when he's got something to say. So, so please do, Nigel, if you've got some comments to add, let me know. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So where do we begin? Well, in a nutshell, the storm is not coming. It's well and truly happened. Okay. And it's hanging around for you and your business in a nutshell. Okay. It's definitely hanging around. We've had, what is it, 3.5 months since it all kicked off. Obviously, lots of people have been sick. I even spoke to a client yesterday who'd been sick, who'd been very much impacted by this, which is very sad to hear. But at the same time, lots of livelihoods, businesses, everything's been impacted in every way, all shapes and sizes, big, small, large, you name it. And the sad thing is, it's not going to be a bounce back as we all hope, even though there's something called a bounce back loan. It's probably going to be something like the clouds are still looming, and I imagine they'll be looming for a while. If I look back at previous recessions, nothing has been so kind of impactful such as this one. I think it's at almost 21% drop in GDP as announced last week in the month of April. So that's unprecedented and totally off the scale. But before I crack on, Nigel, do you want to share any thoughts from your experience of working in the industry, but also more importantly, you've been through numerous recessions and things never bounce back as one hopes as quickly. But do you want to share any thoughts at this stage?
Yeah, I mean, normally, I went through the recessions in the 80s and the 90s. I know I sound very old. But those recessions were gradual. They were gradual recessions. You entered recession gradually over a number of months. You went into recession for a number of months, and then you gradually climbed out of it. What's happened this time is we've plummeted into a loss of GDP. It's not been dropping off at 1% and 2% a month. We've dropped off at 20%. Now there might be a big bounce back from the retail sector and some of the services as people go back to work and people start to spend the money. Looking at the queues outside of IKEA, obviously people do want to spend their money. The bounce back loans and the CBIL loans have helped. They've been a great help. I mean, can't criticise the government too much. They have stepped in and, they didn't have to. the bounce back loans have been brilliant. The issue, all these sort of payment holidays, tax deferrals, receivables loans, bounce back loans, is that they are literally loans and deferrals. They will have to be paid at some stage. So a lot of the planning that you're going to have to do over the next sort of 6 months to 12 months is how you deal with these as they kick in. I think tax has been deferred, Aaron will probably correct me, till January. The bounce back loans have got a year on them, but they all will need to be paid at some point. And if you don't plan for it, they will just come up at you like a train, and you really need to deal with it early on.
Yeah, no, thanks, Nigel. Absolutely right. I think the government has certainly helped, and we've certainly had the bounce back loans particularly been very helpful and giving cash flow very quickly. But that money, I'm sure, has been used to pay suppliers. It's been used to pay creditors. So there probably isn't that much left back for quite a few people who've taken out those bounce back loans. I know that in my own instance, you've had to pay other people, had to do these things which were totally unexpected. So that's the world we live in. But as we said, certain things have helped. And I'm going to go through this list very briefly now of what we're going to have to do. Now, one of the things Nigel mentioned, tax deferrals has certainly been a help. So any payment that has to be made in July, that can be deferred until January. I know most of the clients on here are dentists, so that isn't relevant, but anyone who had a VAT bill can delay that to next January, to next March. In addition, I suppose the big issue now is that well, I'll move on to the next slide to hopefully explain why though, okay? But as Nigel said, certain things need paying. So the bounce back loan kicks off next year. It's at 2.5%, is that right, Nigel, I think? Yeah, over 5 years, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that has to start being paid back. So if you've taken out that £50,000, you're going to have to start paying that back next year, month by month. So that will be eat into your cash flow. Similarly, those tax payments you haven't made for this July, which have been deferred, you're going to have to pay next year. In addition, you're going to have to pay your January bill still in January, that dreaded bill that always arrives in January. So it's going to be a crunch time in spring 2021. You've got the old tax payments, the current tax payments, the bounce back loan payments recommence, and really to kind of put the nail in the coffin is you're pretty likely to have lower income coming in, or income that you usually rely on that would usually pay your tax bill in January. Now, if that's dropped, okay, it's going to be compounding the problems that are there. Okay, so you have to plan for the eventuality of lower income and all these other payments that are coming through, which is some task for a small business or even large businesses. And I was reading today some restaurant businesses who I think have had it even worse than us, in people in the dental and healthcare sector. They're all closing up shop, and when will they ever open up again? And they're getting loans, but those loans are only going to be there for a certain amount of a time. They're going to have to start trading soon at some point. So it's a very sorry situation. So what can you do to keep on top of your cash flow? Well, I'm going to go through a few slides here on some of the things you need to be doing if you're not doing this already, if you're running your own business. It doesn't have to be a dental practice, it's any business. These are all relevant to any business, but I'm going to use the analogy of a dental practice. So the first thing, if you haven't done this already, is cloud accounting. If you're not doing this, you are really, really behind the times, and you need to be doing this for your business, okay? All your you need to record all your trading transactions regularly in a cloud accounting package. And what that means is all the bookkeeping is done on the cloud. A bank account is connected in real time, so you can view your current cash position in real time along with the trading performance. Okay, so every month you'll be doing someone will do a bank reconciliation, so you can see where your money's going, where's it going, where's it coming from. Now we're a firm that uses Xero and HubDoc and Receipt Bank, and it's not very expensive, and either you can get someone like us to do it, or you can do it yourselves if you're training yourselves. But it can really improve the efficiency, because you can instantly see what you owe and what you may be owed to you in the future. And so there's no excuses. This downtime that has been there, if you haven't got this set up yet, you need to have got it set up on your business. And that's just a screenshot. And if you need any help or want to think about getting it done, just ping me an email later on, because this is literally for every practice, for every client, for everyone out there now. This is the thing you have to be doing for your business. Okay.
So Aaron, can I just say there that the banks require up-to-date information. The days of relying on your last year's financial accounts are long gone, and they need your MI or your MA, whichever you want to put it, management information or management accounting, and they need it urgently. Today I was doing an asset finance for someone over 100,000, and their accounts are literally a year old. They're about to be done. They're 1 month away from doing their accounts, and Samira are doing this through cloud, through Xero, and I managed to get the MI straight away, which is brilliant, which has gone straight out to the bank.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the whole benefit. You have the information, it's there, so you can make decisions, but also other people can help make decisions. Because if you don't have that information on tap, if the bank will say, well, if you can't provide that to me, well, are you a safe lend? You haven't got even any clarity of how your business is doing in these difficult times. So that's number one, cloud accounting. Then number two, and I know this is something I've talked about previously on previous calls, is cash flow forecasting. Now, firstly, there's a tool on our website, our Raising, I'll come to it in a minute, on our raising.finance website. And it's an Excel tool. And what this tool does is, it's basically an Excel sheet, okay? And it forms the basis of your accounting records into a cash flow forecast. So what you have to do is, you have to kind of predict what your bills will be going forward, say for rent and payroll and taxes and supplies. But then you have to build in predictions of receipts of income over the forecast period as well. So when we do a forecast or cash flow forecast, it's typically between 6 and 12 months. And we try and predict what the costs will be or the outflows and what the inflows will be. But I suppose the most important thing here, it should highlight when the business may run low on cash in the future. And it's this that can be the basis for an action plan to remedy the situation. So I might just show you the next sheet. You can't really see it that well, but it's a series of columns, okay? And it shows the inflows and the outflows. And effectively, it will at some point show you if you're negative, and that's when you need to start getting money. If you haven't got money elsewhere, you need to think about, okay, I need to get help from a bank or a lender to do this. So if you haven't done this already, okay, done a cash flow forecast, make sure you download it, and I'll send you the links later on to our raising.finance website where you can download this tool absolutely free. Okay. Nigel, do you want to add anything on this for banks?
Yeah, I would just say that if you do your cash flow forecast, it is a means of predicting forward, but you should also be aware that if you know or you think you're going to be short of cash in 3 or 4 months, then you really need to start talking to lenders now, because they've always been notoriously slow. They always worry about cash flow forecasting because they see that as a deficit in the business, in effect. But at least if you're forecasting it, they can see that you're working on it and you've got a plan. But they will need time to come to your assistance. It's not an instant thing. So, and especially at the moment, because at the moment they're still dealing with CBILS and bounce back loans, and most of their managers are tied up dealing with that and repayment holidays. There's very few looking at new lending or additional lending for customers. So the earlier you do these things, the better it is for you.
Yeah, agreed. And I think now that practices have kind of gone back or going back to work, you'll be able to predict what kind of income levels you think you'll be getting over the next coming weeks. And that may be an indicative indication of what your income will be, but then also what your costs will be. And I hope over that period of time, when you were closed, you managed to think about, okay, what costs do I need and what can I get rid of in my business, which I don't need at the moment. But you'll also need to, and so now hopefully you might be trimmed down, but then you have to use this tool to help you forecast your cash position. So it looks like that. And then I suppose the third bit is, third part is how to manage your income and your receipts. So, and I've put this in the context of a dental practice, but I guess this is with any business really. In these times, cash up front is absolutely key, okay? Or a large proportion of the cash up front would be key before you do anything. it's all well and good providing a service to someone, but if they don't actually pay you, or they take 3 weeks or 3 months to pay you, you could be out of business in that time. Okay, so if you're going to see a patient, ensure all the bookings are made, a deposit is taken before the patient actually comes to the practice. You can then certainly understand their commitment, and you can then actually at least make sure you've covered that cost of them being seen for an initial appointment. For larger value treatments, I would say don't even think about offering payment terms off the back off your own back. Either get the money up front or offer them a finance package where the lender out there, like one of those 0% or low percentage finance providers, does fund the treatment. But remember, no work until monies are actually secured. I've seen this time and time again in good times. Now, in these bad times, I think this is going to be a real problem if people don't have much stronger credit policies. For any prior bad debt that you may have had, engage with the patient and see if they can make a payment plan to you and get onto them. Don't just let it sit there as a bad debt and just wither away. Make sure you chase them up and get it. And then if any bad debt still remains unpaid, ultimately you're going to have to get debt collectors or solicitors to help you and chase that debt up, or ultimately even go to court. So it's really important to manage that income and make sure you squeeze every penny coming in for your business, because every penny counts in these times. Nigel, do you want to add anything on this? Because I know from your own banking days, this, I guess, is especially in the special relationship side of things, it's probably you've got some experience here.
Yeah, I think the only thing I can say to people really is don't be afraid to ask for money that's owed to you. We used to look at a lot of businesses where they were owed a lot of money, and we used to go on the phones and talk to some of their clients. We were always polite and just ask for the money and explain that the cash flow works both ways. Everyone needs cash flow, and the money used to come in. Very often, it used to be that when I was in recoveries for the bank many years ago, it was he who shouts loudest gets paid first. But the fact is that unless you ask and unless you sort of put a little bit of pressure on people, they will pay other people. So the danger is that they pay other people and your business goes down. So you've got to make sure you do collect your debts, and you've got to make sure you do sort of stress to people that you've got the documentation, you can prove that they owe you the money, and let's have it now, or let's have a payment plan, a reasonable payment plan that's good for both of us, so we can get the money in.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, yeah, very valid. Okay, then on you as a customer now, where you have to make supply payments, from your side, if you're having to make payments, you need to agree the terms with suppliers when you start trading with them, and always try to stick to them. If you get a problem, I'd suggest you contact the suppliers as soon as, and ultimately arrange a payment plan with them. Going silent or sticking your head in the sand isn't going to solve this problem. Those debts won't go away magically. It'll just get nastier and nastier, and they could be hassling you for those payments. So, and if you don't make those payments, ultimately your credit rating could be affected, which could affect future suppliers as well. Okay. Similarly, for HMRC, you need to make your payments, and things like your national insurance and PAY every month you need to be paying. Obviously, with the payment holidays, they've allowed no penalties to occur for VAT for the last quarter, and for a deferment of the income tax that's going to be due in July. But ultimately, managing cash flow is in part a mirror image of the business's investment in working capital. The higher the value of stock or work in progress or monies owed by the debtors, the greater the difficulty in keeping control of the cash flow. So ultimately, you need to you need to have tight control of your debtors, i.e. your money that you're getting in, okay, in order for you to pay your suppliers. If you have a loose control of your money that you're getting in, you're going to struggle to pay your suppliers. So it goes back to the previous slide, where you have to make sure you've got strong policies in place to get your collections. I've got a question here, actually. I'll answer as I've come through. Any recommendations for good third-party experts? Yes, indeed. I won't say it here. Well, if you're interested, just drop me an email after this call, and I can point you in the right direction of some actually very useful debt collectors, okay, who unfortunately we've had to use ourselves. So let's move on. Then another aspect is CapEx. And now you might be thinking, oh my God, I've run a business, but the last thing I need to be investing in capital equipment. I'm just trying to keep my head above water. But that is certainly a point to consider. But I suppose the asset test is, can the money that you're going to spend be used more profitably, used elsewhere? Now, if the asset is essential, you can buy it, but you buy it using a hire purchase, a lease, or even hiring it. And if you consider the tax perspective, you have to be thinking about, okay, it might be better to lease it or hire it in that respect. And if you're buying any large buildings, you might want to consider a commercial mortgage. So don't rule out capital expenditure. Sometimes you could invest in a piece of kit that can actually make things more efficient, make the business run more profitably. Yes, you have to pay for that kit, but again, if you finance it in the right way through an asset finance arrangement, or if it's a big building, a commercial mortgage arrangement, that can certainly help as well. Do you want to add anything there, Nigel?
Yeah, I'll just say that obviously asset finance is good. There's plenty out there. We do a lot of that for our clients. But if you're looking at making good use of your money, then you can look around, and perhaps you could utilise some money out of a buy-to-let. You can get a second mortgage if you wanted to. That's another way of raising finance for your business.
Yeah.
There are various options, and we can help people with those options if they want to give us a call, and we'll go through them with them. But the commercial mortgages on your property, make sure if you've got a freehold property that you're lending a decent amount on it, if that's where you need to raise money from. You don't want to be maxed out on it, but I came across one today that was borrowing 5% against their commercial property and looking for a 10-20% more, which is fairly straightforward. So, there are plenty of options there, and if you're having trouble and you're having difficulties with finance, we can probably help with that as well.
Sure. Okay, all right, great. There's another question that's come through on hire purchase in terms of, how is it tax efficient? Well, I'm not going to go into the detail here because every situation is different. So I'd be getting it. I would get it wrong if I'd made it for one person or another. We've just got to, and it looks like you've got to work out the profits of the actual individual and how then that makes it tax efficient for that person, and it varies on what band of tax rate you're in. So if you've got a question on that, just ping me an email on the tax efficiency and I'll work it out for you afterwards, because it's a little bit complicated.
I'd add to that, Aaron, that if you're looking to buy something substantial like a CBCT scanner, or a lot of X-ray machines or something like that, it's worth doing projections again to building the cost into your outgoings, and also building the income that you believe they will generate to make sure that it's a cost-effective operation to buy it.
Correct. And also into those projections, you build in the tax implications for it and how tax beneficial it could be for you as well. So, for instance, if you buy, in a nutshell, if you buy a piece of kit like a CBCT, you may be able to, if you buy it in the right way, such as a certain type of agreement you buy it in, you can claim the first year tax allowance, okay? And that can be as a write-off against your profits in that year. So again, it all depends on the value, it depends on your tax bracket, it depends on how you actually buy and what the type of lease agreement or finance agreement is. So there's lots of variables here, and that's why it's important to talk to people like ourselves to help if you need any help. Then I suppose the next point is, kind of touched on this already, but those are kind of the tactics, okay? But then it's also about how to improve your cash flow. So we've seen through COVID-19, there's been various support like the bounce back and the receivables loans. Invoice financing is another way of raising finance, or asset-based lending. And what that basically means is you release money against assets in your business. So assets or an invoice. So if you had an invoice of £20,000 that someone hasn't paid you, you then you can use that invoice and get an invoice, a loan against that as collateral, and the lender will give you money against that. Or assets would be using your assets in the business as collateral and giving you money against that, okay? Another option is, as we mentioned a moment ago, asset finance for new equipment and any CapEx needed. And this can be arranged very quickly in that respect. And then fourthly, obviously the more traditional approach of raising finance, and it may need to offer, but you may need to offer personal guarantees or other forms of security. And I think in the receivables instance, Nigel, they have to offer a security. Is that right? You're thinking?
No, I don't think they do now. I think this is the problem with receivables, that it kept changing.
Okay.
I think it is. I don't think they have to. They don't have to give a guarantee now. I think if it's up to 250.
Okay.
Over that they do have to give a guarantee, and they can be asked for security.
Sure. Okay. All right. Good. All right. Interesting. So to summarize, that's not a summary, but this is kind of some tips that I've put together here. If I had to go through that in a nutshell, these are my 5 cash flow tips. So the first one is to know your current cash situation. You should always know how much cash your business has to draw upon and what the position will be in 3 months' time. Now, if you weren't doing this pre-COVID, fair enough, you may be able to get away with it. But in this environment now, you definitely need to know how much cash you've got and where it is, okay? And how easily accessible it is, whether it's in your current business account or whether you've got personal finance cash elsewhere, you need to know, all right? Secondly, as I mentioned, and we mentioned this previously, you need to prepare and update forecasts, cash flow forecasts. And you must be able to predict the effect of a lost sale or a bad debt on the cash position. So regular updates to your cash flow forecast are vital. You need to know your cash position regularly. And then thirdly, I think perhaps in your team, and this is an important part, it's not just about you, you've got to make it clear to your team how important it is to know that your patients or customers are expected to pay. So make sure that they're aware at the front desk that patients are paying, everything's been collected, or they're aware that when they're booking a patient in, that they're collecting the payment at that point, okay? So you need to make sure you assign the relevant staff, and you need to be checking that this is actually happening. On the fourth one, it's about your credit rating. You don't really want your credit rating to plummet over this period. Therefore, it's essential you pay your suppliers on time to make sure you maintain or actually even improve your credit. And then at the same time, prepare management accounts, share information with your bank or the credit reference agencies might also help your credit score as well. And then I suppose this is one that Nigel brought more relevant to, and he mentioned it very briefly earlier. If you need finance, allow time for the provider to make a decision, okay? Banks routinely change their policies, okay, at a drop of a hat, okay? Before you even realize, you thought, oh, my bank who I bank with, I'll get a loan from them. Before you know it, they've changed their policy and they say, you know what, we're not giving any more cash, okay? Then what do? What's the next step? Would you go to another bank? Are the other banks lending? Do you need to go to a secondary bank or a tertiary bank? That's when it happens. So if you think you need cash, it's not, oh, next week I'll do it. You need to make sure you plan weeks or even months in advance to make sure you have it ready for yourself. Nigel, do you want to kind of add anything to this sheet or to that point in particular?
No, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Really, it's about giving time, because my own experience of NatWest, RBS, and a couple of other banks when I worked for them, that if you try and rush credit, the answer is no. That comes out very, very quickly. And they start to worry if you're rushing them, because it shows unpreparedness, it shows desperation. If you're planning ahead, they might look at it and go, oh, this guy needs more cash. But then they look at it and go, yeah, but he's planning and he's done the right things and he's ticking the right boxes. So you're getting into a very positive territory with the credit people. And that.
Yeah. You there?
That's credit cards with no interest and no repayments for so long and all this sort of thing, because they will destroy your credit score. If you start taking out lots of credit cards, your credit score will plunge. So just be aware of that. I've had a couple of customers caught on that themselves.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Great. Yeah. Very helpful. So based on those cash flow ideas and tips, you've got some tough decisions ahead if you're running a business. Okay. Now I've just very briefly gone over this point because there's lots of thought and thinking that needs to be happened in anyone's business. But the first thing is your people. You may have furloughed staff. You might have brought some of the furloughed staff back, but there may be others you haven't furloughed at. And you might be thinking, well, do I want to retain these people or do I want to move them on? And you might even ask the question, have you actually got the right team? Maybe your business has changed, that you need to think, okay, I need the people I've got aren't the right people for the business anymore. So that's the first tough decision, okay? Your people, because the people are ultimately your business. If you haven't got the right people, they weren't in the right in the first place, you might be thinking, you know what, this is a good opportunity to move them on if they weren't the right people. The second point is your service, your product that you're offering might need to change. I know you're a dentist, you might be a dentist, but you might realize that, well, I was trying to sell implants, but no one really wants to buy implants anymore because lots of people are going to be losing their jobs, and and maybe I'll need to be offering another service. I'm not saying that's the way it's going to go, but you need to think about what is my offering and how am I going to offer it, and based on that, then you have to think about what is the pricing of my offering, which leads us into this third point. Will you need to change the prices as a result of this? So I know I've been talking to clinics where people have changed their prices overnight as a result of PPE, investment, as a result of less patients being seen in the day, because of the fallow time between appointments. So prices have to change now, but will your customer base be able to absorb that? Some will, some won't. Right. So you have to think about these. And then another tough decision is, you might have done this already through these few months of being closed. What overheads can I remove? Overheads could be staff, but it could also be other costs that were within your business. Do you need everything in there, like some certain marketing costs or certain other costs that maybe not adding any value to the business? So the point is, if there are certain costs in there that aren't actually adding value to your business, aren't adding value to the patient experience, aren't adding value to your clinical delivery, and ultimately aren't adding value to you growing your business and making a better performing business, do you need it, and can you change it? So all of these decisions will impact your cash flow, some for the better, some for the worse. But until you make those decisions and until you actually do those things, you won't really know. But you need to track this carefully and closely, month by month, to see the impact of your decisions that you're making. I think it's going to be a tough next 6 months or so for practices out there. But for those who are willing to change and make some of these tough decisions, whilst also keeping a close eye on their cash, are the ones that are going to not just survive, but hopefully actually thrive. Because there are opportunities out there. It's just about repositioning and rejigging your business in how you adjust to the demand and the market out there. Nigel, do you want to add anything on that?
I think you've covered most things there. I think it's just important to plan. If you know where you are, you're going to know where your problems are, and it allows you time to deal with them. And really, life's hard enough with work and everything else, let alone rushing around trying to find 30 or 40 grand if it's necessary. So it's, if you can plan ahead, you can act calmly, and you do look such a better risk bet for lenders.
Sure. There's one more question here, Nigel. Do you expect commercial real estate to collapse? What's your view? I'll give you my view in a minute.
It's interesting that there's no sign of it at the moment. I mean, obviously, there's going to be some issues on high streets with some of these big stores going out of business.
Yeah.
Most of those are owned by pension funds, I believe. Most of those big stores.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's the commercial premises where we have dentistry. We're looking at normally smaller units. There's never been not a great demand for smaller units on high streets anyway. At the moment in time, high streets are declining, so more and more properties are becoming available. I see it. Last couple of months, I've seen 2 or 3 new propositions for new dental practices in what I would call industrial estates. I mean, they're very nice industrial estates, don't get me wrong. They're not heavy industry. They're very light. Mm-hmm. But the beauty of that, of course, is you get the parking, and very easy to get into and out of. Would it collapse? I'm not seeing any signs of it at the moment. House prices, I think, have taken a small hit, but commercial premises seem to be holding up at the moment. I would have thought shops, there might be some pickings in small retail units.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think the retail side of things might be where the impact is, but ultimately, in terms of general commercial space, okay, obviously more and more people are working from home, but still people will need a presence. Companies will need a presence in offices wherever they may be, and it might be just more people work from home, but they still go to the office 1 or 2 or 3 days of the week. So people like the flexibility that this whole situation has arisen, has given. So I don't know. It's too early to say, I think, at this stage, but I think there may be some bargains to pick up again on the retail side, I think. And if you're looking to open up a dental clinic in a retail environment, that may be a suitable option for you. But remember now, if the high street's dying, is the retail environment the right place to have a clinic? My view is that the high street will change from retail to more services on the high street, such as dentists, vets, nail bars, you name it, all the services will become more than the high street as opposed to general shops. But that's been happening slowly over the last few years anyway, and this may just exacerbate it. In terms of rents, another question we've got here, would you recommend trying to negotiate them down? Well, if you're in a lease already, it's pretty unlikely that you'll be able to negotiate your rent down, because the lease will protect the landlord in that respect, so you're going to have to pay it. I guess there's no harm in having a conversation with the landlord. So, well, I'm struggling, can I reduce my rent? If you don't ask, you don't get. They'd rather have a tenant in there, I guess, who's paying something as opposed to a tenant who's forced to close and they'll never get their money from. But then they could potentially go after you, and if there's personal guarantees in place, it can be pretty ugly. So if that's the situation, maybe you can have a conversation with them in that respect.
Might be a good time to ask whether they would like to sell it.
Yeah, another valid point.
If they've got a few properties and they're having issues elsewhere, they might need the cash flow.
Correct. Yeah.
So it's always I always say to people when they're even going for a leasehold, buying or setting up, always ask the question: would you like to sell the lease, to sell the freehold? Because sometimes it's something they haven't even considered, and a nice lump sum of cash could be vital to them at the moment.
Yeah, that's true, because lots of landlords are feeling the pressure, aren't they? So that you definitely need to. Good point. Very good point. So in summary. Cash is king, all right? We know that. This time has proven it. I don't think anyone thought we'd be in this situation, a few months ago. We thought Brexit was just a bad dream, but this is just a nightmare now, isn't it, really, for most people? What's Brexit? But ultimately, we are where we are, and we've got to keep our heads above water, and we've got to keep our positivity out there. So cash is really king in every business out there. For any further help, you can check our websites out, which if you haven't already, samera.co.uk for accountancy, practice sales, that type of thing. Our raising finance site, which is new, which is kind of Nigel manages that side of the business. And the tools are, like what I mentioned earlier, like the downloadable tools are all on that website. You can email me on direct on aaron@samera.co.uk. And if you want to get hold of Nigel, just ping me an email and I can forward it on to him as well. We can help on all areas of financing, cash flow, valuations, accountancy, strategic advice, and exit strategies and sales. So if anyone's thinking about a sale as well, okay, I haven't really talked about that today, but we are selling practices currently, albeit probably lower than what they were pre-COVID, just to manage expectations. We are now quite active in the space, and we are now offering our fees are considerably lower than what any other broker out there is now. We're charging 1.25% plus VAT for any exits that we are involved in. A couple of blog posts. I'm just pointing out to you now that you need to be, you should read on our blog on the raising.finance site, top tips to manage your cash flow during COVID-19 and the template tool there as well. That's the site there. There's a lot of information. You can literally apply online and put your details in, provide all the information, and then one of the team will reach out to you, and hopefully we can get that moving quickly for you. And there's also a loan recalculator on there as well, so you can play around and see if it's the right thing for you, how much you borrow, and that's quite a fancy little tool. And then we're doing a course, it's me doing a private Zoom webinar on the 5th of July, Saturday morning from 9:30 to 12:30. It's £59 and it's called Fight Back Saturday. Save my private dental practice, and I'll be giving basically a 3-hour whiz of these things. I'll be kind of focusing on these aspects, focusing on the key important business matters, becoming the leader that is now required, further methods to improve your cash flow, pricing of your dental services and what prices you should change. Just example, I know yesterday we were changing the prices of my wife's clinics, none of them down, all of them up. Not all the prices up, but a lot of the prices we did change were up. Our marketing strategies, our online marketing, things we're doing to reduce overheads, how to rebuild that EBITDA and ultimately your business valuation, because ultimately EBITDA is profit. And if you can improve your profit, that's going to ultimately impact your value. and then really beating this recession through smart business sense and tweaking things. Sometimes it's not sometimes they might not be changing lots of things, might be just changing a few things, little things, which can have a big impact on the business. £59 for 3 hours plus the recording. I'll send you the link after this call if you're interested. And really just to wrap it up, remember to look at the bigger picture and be ready for the next big changes. I think this is the beginning of a fundamental shift and change in the marketplace, in dentistry, actually in industry, just in economically. And for those that are nimble, for those that understand their finances, for those that understand their business better than anyone else, they'll be able to see the opportunities that are out there, because there will be opportunities out there. It's just a matter of being quick to react and to adapt, and having the cash flow and having the MI or management information to make those decisions to benefit from it. And lastly, just to be thankful for everything we have in life. Yeah, we have to live in the present. Yes, no one expected this situation to arise, but we are where we are. And this is as they say, our perception is reality, okay, at the moment. So we got to make the most of what we've got. Thank you very much. Nigel, any further questions, comments to add to this?
No, just if anyone's got any questions, they can always send them through to Aaron and then pass them on to me, and I'll get back to people.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so I hope we've given we've been talking 40 minutes, given a rundown of some of the things to think about cash flow wise, the tough decisions you have to make. I know it's not easy to make some of these decisions, and if you need some grey hair advice, I've got plenty of it. Nigel's got plenty of it. Yeah, I think I'm younger than you, but I've got more grey hair, I think. I can certainly, we can certainly see if we can try and help you, okay? Actually, there's got another question that's come through, which is quite a good question. When things really get tough, what would you recommend that we prioritise? Yeah, what would you recommend? Nigel, what would you suggest when things get really tough?
That's always a good one, that is. Firstly, your costs, to make sure you're not paying for anything you shouldn't, and make sure you're not paying over the odds for anything. So, the meerkat idea of, compare the market is not a bad idea. Get out there and make sure that your lab bills are the right price, materials are the right price, all these things, your electric, and make sure you're paying the right figures, because they're the things that will drain your money away. And really, get that cash flow forecast done, because if you do the cash flow forecast, especially in the Excel spreadsheet, you can play with it to a degree, and you can see what changes, if you make a tweak here and a tweak there, what difference it can make to your business. And I think sometimes people will be quite shocked. And look at what you're selling, and as you said, the pricing, and make sure that, turnover, the old banking term is turnover is vanity and profit is sanity.
Correct.
It's not all about turnover, but it is about EBITDA. So make sure your EBITDA is spot on and growing.
Absolutely. If I could add one other thing though, also remember, you can't do this on your own. Okay, so a large part of you changing things is motivating and keeping your team on board. Okay, who are the right team, not any team, the right team, the right people. Therefore, if you've got the right people in place, they'll help you turn these things around. Okay, they'll go the extra mile, they'll go the extra 10 miles for you. Okay, so if those people are the right people, then you need to make sure you're keeping them rewarded, making sure, they're feeling rewarded adequately and they're getting paid, etc. Even if it means you're going to have to go short for a bit. Okay, I would also go echoing Nigel's comments. Quite often or not, it's not actually the practice that has the problem. It's quite often that the person's individual life is just too, dare I say it, frivolous. And I sound like, again, an old man with grey hair, but they drive the fancy car, they have the big house, they have several fancy cars, they've had the fancy holidays, they've got the latest watch, all that type of stuff. That costs money. That is cash flow. Okay, do you really need it? Okay, no. Okay, you really don't need it. So those are the things you should get rid of first. Okay, or minimize. Okay, and tighten your belt personally. If you tighten your belt personally, the impact on your business will be positive. And then if you can pay your staff, or pay the right staff members or team members, they'll feel adequately rewarded, and they're the ones who are going to get you out of this stum. Okay, and then really it's a matter of looking at those tough decisions I mentioned earlier, and costs, certainly in the business and outside of the business, and also reviewing your marketing. And marketing is a large part of this. If you can get customers through the door to pay for your services, that's certainly going to help as well. So yeah, what would I recommend? What would be the most important thing? Look at your personal expenses, so you cut down there, and then make sure you've got the right team in place to motivate them and drive the business forward. If you've got the wrong ones, now's the time to move them on as well. Okay. Another question here, Nigel. How much cash reserve should a practice have? That's a difficult one, but what do you think? I've got an idea.
It's a difficult one because I mean, the rule of thumb used to be that you should have 3 months trading.
Yeah.
That's like an insolvency rule of thumb.
Yeah.
If you're running the business, you should be able to run for 3 months fully, as you are now, on the cash that you have in the business.
Correct.
It's a nice thought.
Yeah.
Very often it's beyond reality. I mean, obviously, you know, if you're a really big thing like BP, then yes, you can manage that. But for a smaller business, that is quite hard. But as long as you control your costs and you've got some cash in the background, I mean, it's the old thing. It goes back to personal expenditure, as you said, because when you get to the end of the year, leave some cash in the business. Don't take it all out of drawings.
Yeah. Or if you take it out of drawings, just park it somewhere in a bank account or some long-term investment bond or that you don't need to use. Okay, and if in the rainy day times you just take it out if you need it. Okay. Is it raining? Well, if it's pouring, you know what I mean. So you've got to then take it out then. But I think that's the message here, and I think what's happened in the last few years, everyone wants the latest this, the latest car, the latest phone, the latest whatever, and the issues have come home to roost, haven't they? Really now, and making sure that you have that cash in this downturn, it's really, really important. Okay, I hope so. So firstly, thank you everybody. I just wanted to wrap up. I hope you've had some good questions answered here and some good input here. Oh, it's one other question, sorry. Do you recommend to keep gold as a reserve? Well, that's an interesting one. Well, gold is always the gold standard as a reserve, isn't it? So you could keep gold it's the one. It's the way everyone goes. Their flight to. It's their flight to safety is gold. Okay, but what we've seen, I think gold did reach a peak, but prior to COVID, I believe. Now it's dropped a little bit, I believe now. Interestingly, the stock market has rocketed since COVID. Literally, it hit massively, and it's rocketed, and primarily due to just money, quantitative easing, really, basically from America happening. Will that last? Your guess is as good as mine. But gold historically has always been seen as a safe bet. It's physical. It's bullion. It can be stored in safes, and in the event of something happening, you could even melt it down and do something else with it. Okay, so on that note, I think that's my tuppence worth on gold. Thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed it this evening. And if you need any help, you know where we are. And it's bye from me in Surrey and Nigel.
Yeah, good night from me. Thank you for your time, everybody.
Yeah, thank you very much. Have a good evening. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.
We out.